Hello, friends. In today's session on Torkom Saraydarian's autobiography, the chapter which I'm going to cover for study is self discipline. And by understanding Torkom's self discipline teaching, I think we gain and we also learn a lot. This is chapter 17, self discipline. I felt that I had been granted entry into a forbidden land where I had been instructed unmistakably to master my nature. In order to obey, I decided I would have to discipline myself. I would have to discipline myself. I sat beneath the branches of a tall oak tree in our garden and considered what I must do to accomplish this great task. First of all, I must speak as little as possible, and I must not laugh. I must be fearless. I must be satisfied with whatever I had or with what would be given to me. I must eat little and pray a lot instead of playing with the other children. I must seek the beauties of nature. Why I determined on these particular things, I do not know. But they were so impressed on my mind that I started to practice them in a serious and purposeful way. One day, my second mother invited me to lunch at her home, and I accepted the invitation. When the food she when the food she had so beautifully prepared was on the table, I said to her, I'm not going to eat anything. Why not? She asked, somewhat surprised. I'm not going to eat anything. Then why did you come? I had intended to eat, but when I sat on the table, I said to myself, I must not eat anything, even though I am hungry. I want to master my stomach. Well, she said, that is good, but why are you doing this? Your body needs food, and unless your body is satisfied with food, you cannot control it. You are right, but because your food is so delicious, I wanted to restrain my appetite and not eat it. Maybe later I will eat. All right, let's go to the other room and talk. So we left the table, and when we had seated ourselves in the reception room, she said, I want my boy to be the master of his body. That is what I want. But I want him also to be the master of his emotions and thoughts. That is a future goal for you. I hope I live long enough to see what you do with yourself. Don't worry, I reassured her. You will see I will try as hard as I can. All right, now let's go and eat. No. All right, but let me tell you something. Your body is like a little horse. Try to discipline it gradually. I know, good. I said goodbye then and left, but on the street, I thought maybe I hurt her. So I should go back and eat. Then another thought came to me and said, that is a feeling I must reject. It's up to her whether or not to be hurt. I walked on a few more steps before hesitating again. But my body is hungry. It needs fuel in order to run. I stood still for a moment, considering the various facets of the situation, and concluded, never mind. You decided not to eat, so stick to your decision. You will not die if you do not eat. Formally ending my inner dialogue, I went home. Mommy opened the door, asking with a smile, how was the lunch? It was delicious. What did you eat? Without answering, I went to my room and slept. During the next few days, I could see my mother and sisters were very concerned about my behavior. They said nothing about it, but they observed me and spoke to me in a way that was not usual for them. There was fear in their eyes as well as love and doubt. Only my father was his familiar self. One evening, while I was washing my face, I heard him say impatiently in a loud voice, I know, do not hang on to him. He is all right, perfectly all right. There is nothing to worry about. I took a deep breath of relief. My father understood what I was doing, and that was enough for me, enough to give rise to new energy with which to continue to pursue self mastership. A few days later, Daddy took me to a theater where a famous group was performing a comedy. Before the performance, a man appeared on stage to tell us about the play. He ended by saying, "This evening you will laugh so hard you will fall out of your seats." Immediately, I thought of the commitment to myself not to laugh. The play began, and as it progressed, the promise of the announcer was fulfilled. People really were laughing so hard they were falling out of their seats. The play was indeed comical, but I never laughed. It seemed to me that actually people were laughing at themselves. When we came out of the theater, Daddy asked, "Did you like it?" Yes, I replied, very much. Did you enjoy it? Yes. You know, Haruthian, what we saw was silly. But it is necessary for us to see silly things so that we can learn to be above them. I tried, Daddy. I never once laughed. I know, dear, you have wonderful control over yourself. Wonderful. He was very happy to know that my behavior had been a conscious act. How I missed my father when he died. I lost the greatest understanding heart among those close to me. It was required in our home that all must behave in a spirit of obedience and understanding toward elders. I tried hard never to disobey my elders, my sisters, mother, and father. Father was 5 years older than mother, who set the example for us by being cooperative with him to a degree that was perhaps even beyond what was compatible with her own nature in some matters. But it seemed as if she could read his thoughts and feelings, and whenever it was possible, she made every effort to please him. Once Daddy was about to return home after having been away several days, Mommy said to my sisters, "Let's clean the whole house. Daddy is coming back today, and he always likes it to be clean. Let's change to the green curtains. He likes those, and let's bring out the dishes with the roses on them for dinner tonight." They worked very hard all day. The house shone. When Daddy returned, all of us went to the door to welcome him back with kisses. He was happy to be back and looked about him with obvious pleasure. At dinner that night, when he saw the rose painted dishes, he gave Mommy a special smile to let her know he realized and appreciate all of her efforts. Her eyes filled with tears of happiness, but she checked them and quickly regained her self control. Dinner continued as usual as she inquired about my father's journey. Their attitudes toward each other created great respect in us for Mommy and Daddy. Mommy knew well her work in her home, and never did she fail in her responsibilities toward her husband and children. Father never told her to clean, iron, cook, nor anything else to do with running the house. It was never necessary, as she was a dedicated wife and mother. Something I noticed consistently through the years was that mommy never asked for anything for herself. Often, daddy would give her money and say to her, "Buy yourself something, whatever you need." After she had shopped, she would return the remaining money to daddy to put into the money box that was kept upstairs, to which mommy kept the key. There was no my money, your money in our house. The money was for our family, and if we needed some, we could have it by requesting it from daddy. When I would receive gifts of money from relatives or friends, I would give it to my older sister, who turned it over to mother. We had everything that was necessary for us and were not allowed to buy things by ourselves. Not only did we not buy snacks, we were not allowed to eat between meals. We would have breakfast at 6 in the morning, lunch at noon, and dinner at 6 in the evening. We were asked not to eat between meals, and we were accustomed to our schedule. We were also advised to drink neither coffee nor tea until we were at least 30 years old. Instead, we were to drink fresh milk and teas made from mint, various herbs, and flowers. These refreshing drinks were served in the early morning as well as after dinner. Our diet consisted mainly of vegetables and grains. Perhaps twice a month we had lamb or doves. I did not care much for meat. My preference was for vegetables, nuts, and fruit. We were advised never to smoke nor to drink alcohol. Neither my father nor his father smoked nor drank alcohol, as for was for the ladies. Drinking would have been unthinkably shameful. Our guest room was outside of our living quarters so that those of our friends who smoked could do it there, but only there, as everyone knew how we disliked smoking. When I was about 10 or 11 years old, one of my friends brought over some long cigarettes, and we went to a nearby empty barn to try them out. My friend lit his cigarette as the smoke drifted past me. The odor of it was so unpleasant to me that I returned my cigarette to him before I had touched it to my lips. It was the only time I ever held a cigarette. My musicians and doctors visited our home often. The atmosphere was warm and natural, and at the same time somehow elevating for those who sought things of the spirit. The walls were decorated with beautiful paintings of mountains, lakes, and rivers. An unusual picture which I loved was a bold and brilliantly colored painting of lightning striking a tree. To me, it was symbolic of the power and communication of God. There was another picture which attracted me, but its true meaning seemed to elude me because it could be interpreted in many ways according to the inner depth of the viewer. It portrayed a high mountain on which stood a man releasing a golden arrow into the darkness of space. Finally, I went to my father and asked me, "Daddy, what does this picture symbolize?" It is easy to know my sin. It symbolizes the human soul flying toward the unknown. When I heard these words, a shudder passed through my body and my eyes filled with tears. Until that moment, I had no awareness of the existence of the unknown, and now suddenly I stood before an unlimited ocean that was to be conquered by the human soul, a golden arrow. In our home, gossip was absolutely forbidden. My father had a formula that he used with those around him who gossiped. He used two sentences, that is his business, or he would say, that is God's business. If someone said to him, John is not a good man, my father would reply, that is God's business. If someone said to him, Johnny and Louis are going to get married, but my father would cut short the conversation by saying, that is their business. People simply could not gossip to him. But the situation was different when one spoke to him of music, its effects on emotions and minds, or about new scientific discoveries, or about heroic works. He could converse for hours about these subjects. I remember an Easter Sunday when the local priest came to visit us, and after dinner, he and my father began to discuss the meaning of resurrection. The priest was so impressed with my father's unorthodox views that he kept asking Daddy questions after question until it grew quite late. At last, all of us went to bed, leaving Daddy and the priest deep in conversation. When I got up, when we got up the next morning, we found the two of them still talking and drinking herb tea. Surprised, I asked Daddy, didn't you sleep? No, he answered, we have been busy talking and we still have not finished with this subject. Is it too long? Yes, yes. In our home, we were required always to tell mommy where we were going, with whom, and when we would be back. No one was allowed to be out after sunset except by special permission. If anyone were going to be late, a message had to be sent home. These rules were impressed upon us very seriously, and all of us obeyed them. One of the most important rules of the house was that everyone be present at all family meals. If someone were going to be half an hour late, the time of the meal was rearranged accordingly. My father used to say that people who eat together understand each other and love each other more. At the table, conversations about negative or exciting subjects were prohibited, and instead, my father suggested that we focus our attention on whatever we were eating, its appearance, its texture, its aroma, its taste. To demonstrate how to go about this, he took a piece of bread and holding it up for us to see, he said, now observe how I feel the touch of the bread between my fingers. It's soft, a little warm. I carry it to my mouth. I open my mouth, and now I can feel the pressure of something against my lip, between my teeth, and as my jaws grind, I am completely aware of the pressure of chewing the bread, the release of its flavor as I chew, the control of my throat muscles in swallowing, the feeling of it slipping down the esophagus to the stomach. Now I will drink some water. He continued in this way, explaining how to be conscious of every one of our eating movements until he knew we understood how to exercise self awareness. That same day, testing the exercise several times, I soon realized that after 2 or 3 minutes, my mind was somewhere else. I did not know how it happened. Self observation then became a challenge to me, and I began to apply it to everything I did. After some time of purposeful application, I could see a gradual increase in my attention span, and I was able to remain aware of what was I doing for a little longer. This exercise is not only great fun, but it is an instructive psychological tool that can be valuable in the search for self knowledge. One day, a family came to visit us. Spending the day and leaving at sunset, about an hour after their departure, the man of the family returned, asking if anyone had seen the key to his home. My father said, "You have it." "No," said the man, "I have searched my pockets and it's not there." "Well," said Daddy, "I saw it in your hand. Then, after playing it with it in your hand, you put it into the small pocket under your belt." "I did," said the man. He put his fingers into the small pocket and shamefacedly withdrew the key. We all laughed and reassured him as he apologized profusely for giving us unnecessary trouble because of his absent mindedness. My father's eyes were large and his look very penetrating. One day I told my father how I had bet with another boy and had won his money. My father listened to the whole story and then, without a word, turned and went away. I had a feeling of great shame. Another day, I went to tell him that in opening the door of the stable, I had accidentally let out the little colt that had run away, and that it had taken me 3 hours to find him and bring him back. As Thaddy stood there listening, I was certain that when I had finished, he would scold me for carelessness. But when I stopped talking, he merely snapped a small branch from a nearby tree and walked away. I was happy for the escape but resolved to be much more careful in future. On another occasion, I threw a stone which broke a neighbor's window. The neighbor stormed over, and after hitting me on the back and head to teach me a lesson, he went to the house to tell my mother about it. As he was making his complaint, my father returned home from work. When Daddy had listened to the story, he took some money out of his pocket and handed it to the man for his broken window. Then, turning to my mother, he said in his usual manner, "Do you want to change now, dear? We are invited out to dinner," thus indicating the episode was closed. I deeply regretted my father having to pay for the window I had broken, particularly as the son of this neighbor had cut a hole in our big water jug the previous week, and no one had offered to pay for the damage. But it was the last time I wanted to cause trouble for anyone. Hope you enjoyed this session and it has given you more tips how to discipline yourself. Thanks for joining. Bye bye.